This episode of Pick Up the Six podcast is sponsored by Allbirds. I've been an Allbirds customer for years because their shoes look great, they're super comfortable, and they make shoes and clothes that are better for you and better for the planet by using revolutionary premium natural materials. As a runner, I'm also looking for a shoe that feels and fits great out on a run, and so I'm pumped to tell you about the Allbirds Tree Flyer. I have a pair and they are great. The Tree Flyer is lightweight, super springy, and wildly comfortable, making your running efforts of all shapes and sizes feel surprisingly effortless. They provide unbelievable cushion and comfort, so even your toughest runs are easier on your body. I noticed from step one when I put these on, they just felt great, and that's thanks to the Swift Foam midsole. It's lightweight and big on cushion and energy return. I recommend these shoes because I wear these shoes. I have the orange ones. Plus, they have loads of other great stuff too. And they're hooking you up with a free pair of Allbirds socks on your next order of $50 or more. Just use the promo code PICKUPTHESOCKS. Pretty good, right? Pick up the socks at allbirds.com on your next order of 50 or more, and you're getting a free pair of socks from those guys. Lace up the Tree Flyer and get running today at allbirds.com. That's allbirds.com. We first met Nick Lavery on episode 20. It's hard to believe of Pick Up the Six podcast. We call that episode Back in the Fight. Nick shared all about the day that his life changed forever in 2013 when on his second combat rotation in Afghanistan, he and his unit were attacked by an Afghan insider. Ultimately, it cost Nick his leg. He's back and he has a book out called Objective Secure. He's got a goal to help people crush it and crush their goals. So let's get after it. Nick, it's crazy, man. It was 4 May 21. We had that first conversation. Here we are. We're almost towards the end of July 2022. Bro, it's good to see you again, man.
Yeah, man. Likewise, Brian. How you doing? I asked you how you're doing, but I think I already know the answer. Even just from an outsider and a fan perspective, watching how Pick Up the Six has grown in the last 12 months, man. Congratulations, right? I mean, the fan base is clearly there. The value is there. And I got to tell you, your skill set is developing. You've become quite the interviewer and the podcaster, man. So I know that doesn't come easy, man. So congratulations. It's great to get back on and catch up a little bit.
I'll try not to shit down my leg then this episode. I'm grateful for you. You know, you think back to some of those first stories that we wanted to tell with intentionality, and it's not by coincidence, right? Because I'm not a big believer in coincidence. I believe it's the big man upstairs taking action and choosing to remain anonymous about the results that got us together. Friend Brad Borders brings us together, right? And then this thing just continues to blossom out. We are eternally grateful for those that have been listening for over a year and a half and continue to do. And I'll tell you, I'm doing great because this might put the kibosh on the episode. Up 17 games, the Yanks on the Red Sox in the East, up 12 on the Blue Jays. I mean, not to bring up a sore subject, but I'm feeling pretty good, man.
Yeah, I bet you are. You know what? There's plenty of time. All right. So
listen, the Red Sox have their number, though. They got their number.
All right. Yeah, I don't know. We'll see how it plays out. It's looking kind of ugly, but I don't know. We'll see what we can do.
My man, it has been an action-packed year. Before we hit record, I said, hey, you've been busy. And you were like, yeah, but that's good because you can be busy not doing a whole lot of anything. And the 9 to 5 for you, still active duty in the military, keeps you extremely busy. And then just the passion of going out there and continuing to not only build your own machine, right? Training hard, staying ready for the fight, but to also help unlock some of that in other people. And I know that's part of your mission behind this book, Objective Secure. But first, before we talk about the book, man, just what's life been like over the last year since we last got to hear from you?
Yeah, man, it's been great. The short answer has been great. The family is thriving. You know, we introduced our youngest into this world 16 months ago.
Beautiful.
Which is wild. So now my wife and I are the proud parents, 2 young, savage boys. Oldest is 5, youngest 16 months.
They're never in shirts. They're constantly on the move.
That's it. Yeah, They just want to get dirty and be outside and find new creative ways to hurt themselves, which is great. You know, so it's great. We built a new house. Back in October, we moved in. So, you know, some life changing is happening. My wife, who's also active duty, she got back from her most recent deployment, which will ultimately be her last because she's going to start retiring here in the next few months. And myself, at least professionally, just in the last 3 weeks, maybe 4 weeks, I've transitioned into my new job, man. And I'm not sure if you were tracking this, Brian, but
No, lay it on me.
My team guide time has officially come to a close,
Sure.
which, you know, is bittersweet, I guess, to say it simply. It took me a few months, man, to just kind of work through that mentally, because
Yeah.
you know, it's all I wanted to do. Like, that's why I came into this industry, and I had a great run. You know, I was at it 15 years, experienced a lot, got to check a lot of boxes. But, you know, the reality is no matter how many appendages you have, right, you know, you can only do that job for so long. It does take a toll physically, mentally, and on the home front. So it was the right time for me to kind of move on to the next evolution of my career, which I've been doing now about a month. And, you know, I'm in a great place. I really do love what I do now, which if you asked me that question 6-8 months ago, I'd probably tell you that I'd be miserable.
Yeah.
But I'm actually not. There's a lot of fulfillment. So family's great. Things on my actual 9 to 5 are great. And then on, you know, kind of the passion project, side hustle stuff, those initiatives, it's really taken off, man. Faster than I'm able to keep up with, which, you know, is a good problem to have.
Yeah.
And, you know, you mentioned the book. That was kind of our first major stake in the ground, and the fallout from that has truly been tremendous.
I'd love your perspective, because I've got to think that you probably have a similar perspective as a guy that's rolling off of teamwork, but maybe unique, because it was so close to being taken away from you 9 years ago, right? You're laying on the battlefield. You think you're probably going to die. You lose your leg in that moment. You've got to physically, mentally, and emotionally, spiritually battle back to then go back into the fight to get you get a second crack at it. You get to then do it for another handful of years. So it probably just adds to that feeling of, man, I fought for everything to get back to this, but Father Time marches on.
Yeah, it does, man. And you know, when you're in love with an industry and a profession as much as I am, that's really what it, you know, enabled me to do it. Right at the core was just the love of the game and identifying with the purpose behind it. That's really what it kind of boiled down to. That allowed me to get over all the challenges and all the setbacks and, you know, the failures and the fear and the pain. And you know, I had a great run on, you know, no pun intended, on 2 legs, and I had an even longer run operationally on 1, you know, which is kind of crazy. And, you know, you mentioned it now, and I'll just tell you briefly, Brian, when my team and I got back from our most recent trip over within CENTCOM last year, mid to late 21, you know, the mileage was there. It was really obvious that I was becoming, or at least I was fearful of becoming, a liability to my team. And I've always said, you know, I will do this job as long as I can because I love it. But the truth is, I was going to do that job for as long as I was an asset to the guys to my left and right. And I just believe that even the second that inkling starts to come in, that, hey, man, are you really supposed to still be here doing this? Just the fact that thought was crossing my mind forced me to have some conversations with my doctors, with my orthopedic surgeon, with my physical therapist, and be like, hey, man, like, this is what I'm dealing with right now. And they all asked me the same question independently, was, how much longer are you going to keep doing this? Because if you keep going down this road, you keep living this lifestyle, you're going to need both your hips replaced. You're going to need your knee replaced. Like, your ability to maintain this machine and operate at that tempo is just becoming more than you're able to manage. So, you know, like I said, Brian, it was a great run, and I had a great time doing it. And, you know, this next evolution now, it's actually something that I'm eager to continue to sink my teeth into and just serve at just a different capacity, man.
Do you have to intentionally, you talked about purpose, right? You talked about being able to do something you love and finding purpose in that. I'm a firm believer that it's not your strength that holds you to your purpose. You're one of the strongest guys I know, physically strong, but it's the strength of the purpose itself, right? You could be the strongest individual, but unless that purpose is strong, you can't hold on to it. So where do you come down on setting aside time for intentional thoughts of purposefulness, especially as you're going through a transition into a new sort of evolution, as you call it?
Yeah. Oh man, I love this. I did a podcast a couple of weeks ago, and we kind of targeted kind of the younger demographic, 19, 20, 21, maybe even early as 12. And something that it took me a really long time to recognize the value in, which is why I try to stress it to the younger generation, is the establishment of that internal dialogue as early as possible, knowing that it's difficult to do, knowing that it might feel awkward, and also knowing that you're probably not going to hear anything back from yourself early on.
Talking. Yeah.
And certainly not a blunt punch to the face, right? But the earlier we can begin having that internal dialogue and that degree of self-awareness and just commit to it with consistency, and that, I think, is a critical aspect of figuring out exactly what it is we're here to do, man. Like, this isn't a dress rehearsal. We got one shot at this thing. Like, why am I here? And I know people who are in their 40s and 50s that are asking themselves those questions now, which is great. Like, It's never too late. But I challenge the younger demographic to begin having that conversation now, so that you begin to develop that relationship with yourself over time. And you were able to just be that much more honest with what we really want to do and who we really want to be and what is my actual current situation that I'm operating within.
Yeah.
Not what I'm trying to project on social media, not what I'm trying to appease my coaches and my parents or my spouse. Forget all that for a second. Like, forget all the external pressures that come with being a member of society in today's world, where that stuff is just coming in and going constantly. Like, stop, like, detach, look yourself in the mirror, sit in a cold or a comfortable dark room, and just begin that internal dialogue, which is something that I really didn't do for myself until kind of later in life. But once I did, it became very apparent to me that even though initially my idea was to come into military service, get some payback for 9/11, learn some skills, and then get out and move on to the next thing, I found my purpose within this lifestyle. And I know with now certainty that I was put on this earth to as a warrior, to pledge an allegiance to a society in which I will defend and serve. And it took me into my 30s to really capture that, because I didn't start that process early. So I challenge those that are younger, yes, but really just anybody. If you don't find yourself doing that consistently, I challenge you to begin. And the one tool that I would recommend using to enable that is journaling, is writing. And Brian, I gotta hit this quick because especially for us alphas, us warriors, us that whether you're in a profession of such or you identify as such or you live a lifestyle of such, it's very easy for those of us in this lifestyle to look at journaling as this kind of weak task or this weak hobby, like a badass dude is going to go home and write in his diary.
I'm going to write down my feelings and
yeah, man. And I understand that, and I understand why that is perceived that way. But I challenge, the baddest dudes on the planet, the baddest people on the planet. Hey, man, just do it once. Just take 10 minutes and just write down.
Get a freaking legal pad. Get whatever you got.
That's
right?
it.
Yeah.
Jot it down. And, I'm willing to bet, or at least I'll play the odds that not only will you get some kind of therapeutic value out of it, which I do, but more so for me is just having that somewhat objective but analytical data to use as I'm analyzing what am I doing, how am I feeling, where am I stalling, where are my gaps, why am I not progressing as well as I'd like to. You have a resource to leverage. So I challenge those, especially those alpha warriors.
Yeah.
Hey man, give it a shot, and I'm willing to guarantee you're going to get some value out of it.
I'm also a firm believer that we can only hold ourselves so accountable. I'm a believer in proximity. I think we need proximity to other people who are aligned with us missionally, that are moving in the same direction to really keep eyes on us. But when you take intentionality and you write those things down, it is a way for you to be able to see and measure the things in which you're working through. Plus, by the way, guys, if you're a super alpha, they make all these badass journals that are made of leather that smell like bourbon and tobacco. Like, you can still be cool and do it at the same time, right?
Yeah.
You said another thing in there too about sort of finding that purpose. Look, I'm 41 years old. It took me till I was about 38 to be able to say with confidence, God put me on this earth to connect people to something bigger than themselves. And when I took time to look at what have you always been good at doing in your life, right? There was always a mode of me in some form connecting people to something else. It's one of the reasons why we launched this platform here, to be able to connect people to something bigger than themselves. Right. So I think you've got to be willing to sort of take some time, and sometimes it just takes time, and don't get yourself all stressed out about, oh my God, I don't know what my life mission is. I don't know how to write it. Just do what Nick just said. Take a pad, give yourself 30 minutes. This weekend, I'm clearing 30 minutes, just me, and just write down things that you do where you think you're in your sweet spot, where you're doing what you were born to do for those who you were born to serve.
Yeah,
That D2X.
that's well said.
Right?
Absolutely.
So it's that. Hey, I listened to the beginning of it. Sean Ryan show. I mean, he's super intense.
Yeah.
When he intros you on the pod. How was that conversation?
Yeah, dude, it was a lot of fun. Yeah. Ironically, Sean and I had crossed paths back in Afghanistan over 10 years ago, back in 2011, when he was working for the agency. And it was actually my first deployment as an SF guy, or my first deployment period. And then just to come kind of full circle, over a decade later, and, he's out and he's doing this whole platform, which is exploding. And
yep.
So it was really cool to kind of do that. And then I've been a fan of his work for a while, and but it was tiring, man. We ended up being 4.5 hours of content. We were in his studio for just under 7.
Jeez.
And by the time we got done, yeah, we were both smoked.
Yeah.
Yeah, we were completely smoked. And dude, I as a fan of his show and his platform, I assumed that there was a whole crew that was there, like facilitating this thing.
Yeah, right.
But it's literally just him. He's got his own studio, and it's really nice. But he runs all the cameras, all the mics, all the lighting, all the angles.
He doesn't even have a Jamie like Rogan does, right? Like, at least Rogan's got a guy that.
Nothing.
I love it. Yeah, but I fucking love it. Of course, like, get after it, dude. Just do your thing.
It was cool, and just just like very similar to what you just said. Finding kind of what that purpose is late in life, which I think is really common, more often than not. Sean, Navy SEAL, GRS, did a lot of the cool guy stuff at the time when there was a lot of cool guy stuff to do. It wasn't until he was way later in life that he just picked up a camera and started messing around with it and said, I think I want to kind of get into journalism and creating media content. And he found that not only does he have an actual inherent talent for it, but that's really what drove his ability to learn the skills behind all the technical stuff and how to bring it to market and how to do all that stuff. And so that happened for him late in life, and similar to what you just talked about, man. So it's never too late. Sean, great dude, great time spending some time together. He invited me to his home. We had dinner, met his family. Those that haven't seen it, sure, check out my episode, but just, it's a great platform to get some information off of.
I'm so excited for the way that this media landscape is changing and becoming more of an open territory where guys like him, or even the Jockos of the world, or even my friend Eddie Penny, he's got a new book out called Unafraid, right? Eddie was a Team 6 guy, and he doesn't flaunt that a lot because he's a humble guy. But I'm thrilled for the way in which you guys are able to continue to tell these stories. And then also look at this 2.0 of your sort of post-team, SF careers, and continue to share valuable lessons learned, because I think there's a lot that's in there. And I don't know if we necessarily got that level of it from years past. And maybe it's the way that media has opened up and these platforms have been created and available where you can continue to share these stories and have these conversations, because there's a lot of applicable stuff that, whether you served in gnarly combat or if you're heading into a boardroom tomorrow, there's lessons that I think you can take, and people can hear from you guys, and they can also just appreciate everything you've done too, which I think is a cool thing.
Yeah, man. And not only, obviously the technical aspect of these platforms being available with, all the different socials and just the internet in general and YouTube, right? So anyone can pick up a device and get stuff out there to the world, right? I mean, anyone nowadays can do that. So certainly the involvement of technology has enabled that, but particularly within the special operations community and those of us that live a lifestyle of that kind of quiet professional mentality that really struggle with, is it okay for me to go out there and be vulnerable and share this stuff, or am I violating this code that I signed up for of pure and total anonymity for life? And I think that you're seeing now that snowball effect where those that have worked, in tiered elements or in any of the other soft units that are willing to take that risk and also take the negative response to that from those in the community or outside of, which is inevitable, being willing to take that on for the greater good of what that value what you can provide in terms of value to the world across all sectors. I think it becomes a little bit more available and people are more open to doing it. Because, the last 20 years, man, and this, right? Like so many valuable lessons were learned, in combat or outside that, just within the conflict that we've been a part of for 20 years post 9/11. It would be truly a shame for all of that to just die with the individual, right? Like, just think about how many lessons were learned, not just in terms of trigger pulling and blowing things up, but leadership, strategy, tactics, mindset, just discipline. I mean, across all character trait sectors, for those to remain bottled up indefinitely would be just an absolute catastrophe and a real shame. So I'm really proud to see guys like Sean and others that are willing to get out there and do that. And for me personally, those guys have helped me navigate through that same space because I'm going through it myself. So seeing that trickle effect and that snowball effect is enabling, but I think it's gonna pave the way for greater value, to our overall society and communities.
I think the key too, and I can only speak to this from an outsider looking in, but you've got a much closer relationship to it, is for that next generation of warrior, the young warrior that now grows up seeing the older warrior. Kind of celebrity is not a right word to use, but it's the closest word I can come up with, right? Be elevated on the platform. I think you are going to have some intentionality and leaning into, look, you better not be joining the teams to get famous. That's not what this is about.
It's a great point.
But with guys like you and guys like Sean and other guys in that space, right? That's how this leadership thing works. I mean, that's how you hand this thing down to ensure that you still got virtuous leaders coming through that can continue to give it away. Like, I think that's what you guys do. I think that's the idea behind the book, right? So tell me a little bit about Objective Secure, right? You talk about, you got 20 years of experience, you got all these things you've seen and done. You want to help people leverage their skill set, unlock what they're doing in their life to be able to go out and set goals and crush goals. So tell me about writing it. Just tell me all about that whole process. I know it came out where it's been out for a few months, but just tell us about how all that takes shape and what you're hoping folks get out of it.
Yeah, and I'll stop right by saying the most consistent negative feedback I've received, which is important for me. That's how we get better, right?
Yeah,
it's like
sure.
A good AAR is not focused on the things we did right; it's focused on the things that we messed up.
That's right.
So I welcome that, and really I'll say the only to this point negative, but I've received it a few times, is people want the autobiography. People want more of my story.
Sure.
That is intentionally not within Objective Secure. So I tell this pretty early and often, is if you're looking for the Nick Lavery story or the autobiography, the Objective Secure is not what this project is. What Objective Secure began when post 2015, my first deployment as an amputee, that was kind of my initiation into gradually moving into the public space, kicking and screaming a little bit, had some generals that made me do some things. Gradually got more and more comfortable, just like we just talked about, right? I really struggled with that. And I still do a little bit today. Social media, I'm putting some stuff out there, and then the waves of questions are coming in, right? How did you do what you did? How did you do what you did? Was most often what I was being asked. And I'm answering people one at a time. Boom, 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 boom. Well, after a year or two of doing that, I just decided I was going to put the answer to that question in a Microsoft Word document.
You're like, yeah, I got a lot of content here.
Yeah, I mean, purely for efficiency, Brian, purely for my own efficiency. So when this question comes in, I can just copy, paste, and send. And not only are you getting a faster response, I'm able to work through my process faster, but by creating that, I actually gave it a lot more thought than I had prior to that point in time.
Yeah.
I sat back going, how did I do what I did? I really haven't like deeply reflected on that. So I broke open my journals. I broke open my training logs. I started matching up kind of what I was doing at what time. What was I feeling? What was I thinking? How was I training? How was I eating? Right. And I just blended all that together into what ended up being maybe a 9-page Microsoft Word document. Nothing fancy, just an outline, like step 1, step 2, step 3, or phase 1 through phase 10. That was it. And I used it that way for a couple years. And it was successful, right? People were getting what they needed. I was able to do it faster and more efficient. Everybody won. Well, come early to mid 2020, I'm in dive school down in Key West. I'm getting my ass kicked. And a good buddy of mine reaches out. We've been best friends over 20 years, played football together in college. He hits me up, and I got maybe 2 weeks left of dive school. And I'm a ragged mess, Brian, right? I mean,
they've just been killing you.
Just absolutely getting my ass kicked, hanging on by a thread the entire time. And he hits me up and says, basically, Nick, I want to talk to you about something. I think you need to write a book. And I'm like, dude, get out of here. I'm in no position to even have this conversation with you. Let's talk later. Sure enough, we circle back a few weeks later, and he presents it to me again. I said, no, man, I think that you need to seriously consider this. So purely out of respect to him, as one of my best friends over 2 decades, I said, sure, Eric, I'll think about it. And I did. And now keep in mind, this is July of 2020. COVID, crazy. We're teleworking, even in the military, which is weird, but we got limited hours in the office, limited hours in the team rooms. I got a lot of extra time and energy on my hands that I otherwise wouldn't have had. So I have that to leverage. And I don't typically do well with idle time. So I'm like, okay, you know what? And get back on the phone with E. I said, dude, I got this Microsoft Word document. It's about 9 pages long. Here's how I've been using it. He's like, I love it. Keep going. Add to it. Just add a little bit to it. No set plan, no set outline. Just keep writing. You're already journaling every day. You're writing in your training log. Just throw that stuff at this project. Let's just see what happens. I said, okay, yeah, fine, fair enough. Brian, I'm not kidding you, man. It didn't take more than 2 weeks, and this became my obsession. And it turns out, again, finding out late in life that you have a passion for something. This happened with me just a couple of years ago, and I'm 39 years old. I'm going to be 40 next month. Late in life, I realized I actually enjoy writing, which to this day, saying out loud feels and sounds weird to me, but it was true. I caught the bug. I found myself getting up at 3 o'clock in the morning, and I just had to get up and write. So I got dialed in, and I'm doing, 500-600 words a day. Now it's June, August, or July.
Are you taking what's in the 9-page and we're just adding, right? Now you're really fleshing it out. Right?
Yeah, I'm adding more.
Right. And you're just starting to build it out.
Yep. So I'm adding more analysis into what was already there. And then now I'm adding in personal examples of what was I going through in time and space when I realized that this particular principle was important, or how I leveraged this principle or this tenet to my advantage, because this is what I was experiencing, right? So kind of tying in personal experience with kind of general recommendations and guidance. And I just kind of kept adding to it. I had a deployment scheduled for December of 2020. So I gave myself that as my backstop, which left me with just about 4 months of time. And I said, okay, I'm going to go at this thing from now until then, and then I'll reassess and see where things are at. I mean, fast forward to late November, and I'm sitting on like 70,000 words. Jeez. And I at least have the contents of a book, right? So we can talk more about how that became from a Word doc to like a 3-dimensional thing.
Yeah.
But I just used that story, kind of the genesis of the project, to just exemplify and really put an exclamation point on what it is today. Is still very much the exact same intent that it was 4 years ago when I wrote a 9-page Word doc. It's a guide, it's a tool, it's a philosophy, it's a methodology focused on achieving goals through overcoming adversity through the lens of what I experienced and went through from being at a position where I really should have died to getting back to operational status, getting back to the teams, and then continuing to do what I had done from that point up until I wrote the book, man.
I love the way, so it's not like I'm going to sit down and write a book. It's just because you had set the time aside, right, to log those things. Like you said, man, the journal, like it becomes its thing. It grows into itself because of what's happened. That's such a neat way, and I think a rather unique way. We've talked to other authors. Some have set out with, all right, we're going to write a book. It's going to be about all these different things. We're going to do boom, boom, boom. You're sort of just organically kind of happen. And thank God your friend kind of comes into your life and says, I think we got something here and you should do something more with this. It's crazy the way that stuff.
Yeah, it's wild. I mean, you're literally talking about a couple dudes from Boston who grew up together,
smashed heads together,
and making a lot of really horrible decisions in our 20s. And fast forward 20 plus years, you come together, and now there's like something with some like real tangible value that can do well. I say this humbly, to our society and to our community.
Mm-hmm.
And it did. Although I really enjoyed writing, man, it didn't come without the need for a high level of discipline and dedication. Because come late 2020, September, October, things started to open up a little bit for us. We're back to kind of full capacity, but I knew I needed to finish this thing. So I had to find ways where I could slice out things that didn't need to be within my day-to-day lifestyle. And the major thing I leveraged was football, man. I'm a big Pats fan. I grew up playing football. That's a big
chunk of time on a Sunday afternoon.
Dude, football season for me, Sundays, that was football day for me. I'd invest 6-7 hours. I was playing fantasy at that point. Sunday was a day for football. And I said to myself, dude, if I want to see this thing through to the end, something's got to give.
Yeah.
And that's the thing that I cut away from. So not only was really, really early mornings, but Sunday became my day to really dial in 4 or 5 hours behind the computer, punching away in the keyboard. And family and friends would be in the house watching the game. I'd have, noise canceling headphones on my head so I could try to dial in. So my point is even though I was in love with the process, even though I really wanted to see it through to the end, that did not come without the need for struggle, sacrifice, discipline, man. Totally. Yeah, absolutely. 100%.
Before we go, I want to ask you one more question about it, and then you can tell folks where they can get it, because I know they're going to be listening. It's like, man, I got to get my hands on that. It's a little level of vulnerability when you got to hand that those 70,000 words over for somebody else to now comb through, edit, review, right? Because you can't, I'm sure you're not publishing it all on yourself and doing all right. So what's that experience like, man, handing that over to somebody else to then put eyeballs on?
Yeah. So I think this is important because I've been asked now multiple times, which I think is really cool. Hey man, thanks for the book. I'm interested in writing. Like, how did you do it? Like, what was your process? And, I tell people what I just told you, maybe in a little bit more detail, mechanically, but we decided that, we did want to self-publish it, which,
nice.
In today's world, traditional publishing versus self-publishing, I would stand by that. The only real upside to going a traditional publishing route, like Simon Schuster type like situation, is one, if you really need an advance, like, because they will pay you upfront.
Gotcha. Yep.
So that you can have something to live off of while you commit your time to writing.
Sure.
I didn't need that. Like, I have a full-time job. I'm good to go. I didn't need that. So I wasn't willing to not only sacrifice like royalties as part of it, right? But really for me, it was zero creative control. I'm not giving up any, no one is going to dictate what this thing looks like, feels like, sounds like. I'm doing this myself. And in today's world, particularly with Amazon,
dude, you send
anyone
it in, right?
can
they
go
set
do
it up,
that.
print it out, rock and roll, like gets it shipped out to people.
It's incredibly user-friendly. I did begin to, as I was learning that process to bringing it to market to Amazon, my team and I decided to go through a self-publishing consultant, which is who we went with.
I like that.
And,
yeah,
you pay up front. They don't own anything to the project. They work for you. So that's where you get your editing. That's where you get assistance with designing a cover if you need that.
Which, by the way, badass cover, right? You guys will see. Just go on Amazon, put in Objective Secure. You'll see that awesome picture of Nick He's got the one amputee leg, right? He's all kitted up. We've used it on show graphics as well. So you see, it looks great, man. Packaging looks great in there, right? What's in there, right? Somebody picks it up, they get it home, they start reading it. What are they going to pull out of that thing?
Yeah, man, it's broken down into two sections. Section one is mindset, and section two is strategy. And I enjoy a lot of personal development stuff. That's where I spend a lot of time in my reading and my research. My issue with many of those projects is it kind of ends at the conceptual level. Okay. It kind of ends at the up in the clouds, feelings and emotions and focus. And those things are super, super important. Don't get me wrong. But I find myself at times wanting a little bit more. Like, bring me down into the tactical level from your perspective as the consumer of this type of content. So I wanted to mesh those two things together, where we talk about mentality and mindset and focus and structure and discipline, but then we get into more of the X's and O's. And again, this is purely anecdotal. This is purely just what I went through and how I was able to leverage it. And it's just, step one, step two, step three, step four, an actual guide to a strategy that one can employ. And it's malleable enough and flexible enough that you're able to take literally any current operating environment that the reader may be in, as well as any desired end state or desired mission or goal. And you can apply this methodology and these tools within that. It's very user-friendly, kind of plug and play, which we like. That's what you get, and then sure, you're going to get some memoir type stuff. You're going to get just enough of a story to be able to correlate what I was experiencing to what I am recommending. Yep. But you're going to be left wanting more. I'm telling you right now, you're going to be like, oh my gosh, tell me what happened after you got shot. Like what's going on? I'm telling you right now, you're going to be somewhat disappointed in that, but it is written like that on purpose, because this is not about me telling my story or trying to simply motivate somebody through my experiences. Yeah. This is a much more objective, scientific breakdown of how do I move from point A to point B, knowing there are going to be struggles along the way. And according to me and according to us, the way we do that is by securing one objective at a time, one small obtainable goal at a time, done in repetition, done at scale, is ultimately what leads to mission success.
It's a highlighter book, right? I love a good highlighter book.
Highlighter book. There it is.
All right, let me pull that back out, right? And that's where the tactics come in to be able to do that. Tell folks where they can find it. Tell folks where they can find you. And by the way, if you want the story of his life, you go back to episode 20, Pick Up the Six podcast. You can hear about those things. So when you're reading the book, you're like, I want more. Cool. We got you. Go back and listen to that old episode. You can make it happen. Absolutely. Where can everybody find all this stuff?
The one-stop shop, man, is our website, which is machinenick.com. It's got links to all my socials. It's got links to the book, which is currently available solely on Amazon. However, in the next, I'd say, couple weeks, we're going to offer signed hardcover options.
Love it.
Directly through the website. And then we're actually booked now for mid-November to begin recording the audio.
It's going to be I said, how many people have told you got to do the audio book? And you're like, yeah, got it.
Yeah, a lot of people. And a lot of people, when they hear me talk on this, they're like, oh, you have to narrate it, which, I'll let people know now. Here's a spoiler alert. I am going to narrate a good portion of it. So if the Boston accent is driving you crazy, then maybe pick up the actual book itself.
You want the real authentic experience.
Yeah, man. So we're excited about, kind of the next evolution and where it continues to go. And the feedback has been tremendous, which we, again, through the website, by all means, man, reach out. You can get a hold of me directly to either tell me how you felt about the book or ask any additional questions. And we take that interactive connectivity real seriously, man.
Love it. Brother, we're so grateful for everything that you've done for our country and for what you continue to do. Wish you nothing but the best in this next phase of the job evolution. And then as this goes on as well, we know folks will go check out the website, pick up a copy of the book, get a signed copy, and then be waiting with bated breath to hear that audio book drop as well, because folks are going to want to get a part of that. My brother, it's good to see you, man. Good to catch up again. Best to your family and to the boys, and we'll talk to you down the road soon.
Likewise, man. We'll talk to you soon.
He's Nick Lavery. I'm Brian Jodis. That's been this episode of Pick Up the Six podcast.